To call our meeting to order at 6:30. Get my priorities up here. We have a lot of things on our agenda tonight, including the Darrow Scholarship, the second grade class, some Act 46 updates as far as I know, and I have a whole laundry list of things that we need to discuss very quickly. So let's get started if we can. Can we start with the clerk's report, please?
Does anyone have any corrections before I move the minutes from last time? Okay. I move that we approve the minutes from the April 25th meeting.
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. And we'll close that window. One last thing to look at. Does anyone have any communications that they'd like to share with the rest of the board? Okay. And then we're chugging right along. I'd like to recognize these folks who come out to see us tonight. If you could give us your names and tell us why you're here. Marissa?
I'm Marissa. I am the school counselor at Putney Central School.
Maureen Ward, first grade teacher at Putney Central School.
I'm Jessica Taylor. My son Luke is in the first grade, and we are here to talk about how large his class is.
Ariane Lavoie. My daughter Ella is in first grade as well.
Louise Hudson, my daughter is also in the first grade, and I'm also a teacher up north in Bellas Falls.
I'm Katie Iman. My son Ben is in first grade. I'm also a teacher in Bellas Falls.
Ruby McAdoo. I have a son in first grade and in pre-K, and I'm one of the parents who's part of the PTO and trying to activate the parents in this classroom to be engaged, particularly on this issue that's already being discussed within the administration.
Okay, with everybody's permission, I'd like to let as many of these folks who want to get out of here early as can, so we can skip to this part and we'll come back and do the other parts. You're welcome to stay.
Really fine.
Yeah, you're welcome to stay all night if that's what you want to do, but I figure you probably don't want to do that. So, Herb, would you like to open
Sure.
the discussion?
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for coming. Good news. We have 182 kids at school this year, presently. The not so great news is we have a couple of odd clumps. And one of those is in the 5th grade that currently has 26 kids, and the other is in the 1st grade. So, the 5th grade, we managed to work this year by adding some additional people power to the environment. Worked well. Kids are older, more mature, I guess, as students, you know, into the learning environment and so forth, unlike first graders who are still being molded and groomed into students. So, first grade, originally we had 25. And originally I mean budget time. When budget time was started, the conversations were started, we had 25, we still have 25. But we've had 3 additional enrollments in the past few weeks. So the number right now, if nobody moves, looks like it's going to be 28. And so I think for lots of different reasons, we've sort of reached a tipping point in terms of our capacity to deliver comprehensive services to those kiddos. 3 kids out of that 25 are currently special ed students. So they require, via the IEPs, special ed services. Very likely that another 2 who are currently in the 25 will be identified before the end of the year. So, we could be looking at somewhere between 18 and 20% of the student population in that class being special ed. It's not unusual, but once again, when you have a number like 28, it starts to mean something, right, in terms of the capacity. The other piece of it too, and is why it's important to pay attention to the numbers, is we really pay a lot of attention to the social and emotional development of the kids, right? It's not just sort of the academics and the learning, the reading and writing, math and so forth. And so the social emotional well-being of the kids, the education of the kids along those lines takes a pretty intensive effort by people like Marissa, classroom teachers, Maureen and Amy here at the moment. But those large numbers tend to be a little bit more challenging to, I hate to use the word control, but it is something like that in terms of the classroom management piece. Because a big part of the classroom management piece has to do with inculcating those basic social emotional traits that we want the kids to develop and exhibit here as students, you know, kindness, empathy, etc. And it's harder to have eyes on each kid in a number, you know, with a number that's that large. And like any class, there's a couple kids who need a little bit of extra TLC, and it has nothing to do oftentimes with their special ed status. I just want to be clear about that. They're just the kids that kind of go like this, you know, with some regularity and need the extra attention by a classroom teacher. So those are my large views. I mean, we average, you know, obviously when you've got a class of 26 and 25, it kind of makes you think twice about saying average, right? But we have a class low of 12 in the current 7th grade, which is important because we'll graduate 15 and we've got 17 in the 6th. So the 26 that are currently in 5th, assimilating them into the middle school environment is really not going to create any ripples, I don't think. Similar to what would happen if we just sort of passed the kids into Amy's class in 2nd grade with 28 and thought that we could somehow make that work. So I think it's a healthy bump up for the numbers in the middle school, which are low this year, which have provided us with several opportunities to do some of the things that we hadn't been able to do with larger class size in the middle school. But we'll go back next year and with the 26 to where we were before this year with the middle school and work out some of those things with the larger number there. So that's really it in a nutshell. I mean, I think my recommendation certainly is that we look for another qualified 2nd grade teacher, split the class somewhat, and how that will be decided is something that we'll decide as an internal team. Look at it as an opportunity to have some creativity around team teaching opportunities. We have the physical space, so we can do that without, you know, major expense. We don't have to tack on another classroom space, no addition necessary. It's there, and we'll just have to repurpose it into a classroom space. So, I mean, Amy could speak to some of the benefits of team teaching. I think beyond 19-20, in other words, next school year, we'll have to think about how we manage this cohort and what that might look like. And, you know, we wouldn't keep 2 2nd grade teachers, you know, for the next group, which right now stands at 19 kids. I mean, that would be 1 teacher, you know, we would manage that. So there's lots of creative options there. I mean, we could do some looping, we could try some other things to keep that split going until 5th grade, which is when they'd be assimilated, after that into 6th, when they'd be assimilated into the middle school environment. So.
So last night I happened to be part of a Compassionate Brattleboro presentation where all the Brattleboro schools gave a little presentation about the social emotional curriculum and what's happening in each school around the social emotional learning. And across the board, everyone really stressed the fact that we need to be able to have students who are regulated, who are in a good place emotionally in order to even begin to work on academics. And for me to think that we could have a class of 28 kids and want to work with them academically, we need to be able to think about social emotional work, and I just can't even imagine what that would present to Amy.
Yeah, really good. I'm a second grade teacher this year, so I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, but Amy, second grade teacher this year.
You're really, really good.
28, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know how you want to, in terms of the format for the board, in terms of hearing from the audience.
We can take commentary at any time. I'd love to hear if there's any immediate commentary from the board that. Okay.
Can I ask a question though before you go in? I'm sorry. Yeah. What you say, like 28 is really big. What's the average class size right now at Putney Central School?
Well, like I said, it ranges, right? So if you're I'm not going to encourage the use of an average. And the reason is, one class has 12 and one has 26.
Right.
But the average, the median, okay,
Yeah, that's what
is actually more like, I didn't do the math, but it's more like 17. We're in
it's
this-
a good.
17, 18, which is fairly consistent, by the way, with our sister schools throughout the district. Nobody has, to my knowledge anyway, nobody has an anomalous class of 26 even, I don't think it's out there. Everybody's, the largest classes not usually, but have been around 20, 21, 19 in Vernon. They have 2 at 19, so.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sure, yeah.
So you wanted to speak, Amy? Go
Oh,
ahead.
well, I was just echoing what Lyle was saying in terms of the social emotional piece, and building relationships is very important if you're going to work on the social emotional. The students, they have to trust you, they have to feel like you've got them and you can hold them and you have that space. And it's just, with 28, it's a much bigger task or a bigger ask to try to hold that space and build those relationships with students. So just for relationship building, and for what you need in order to build the social emotional skills, it's really a very critical piece of that as well. So that's what I just wanted to echo what I was saying, but I can say more, but I don't want to monopolize the floor.
I think also there would be a lot of conflicts with that number of students, a lot of conflict resolution, a lot of refereeing, which I would think would take time away from learning. And so a smaller size, you could I think they'd be able to pay more attention to what's going on.
Can I chime in too? I heard you mentioned about students that have been identified with special needs and that there may be more students identified, and I think Maureen, you could probably speak to this better than anyone else. There are kids in that class that have some high needs that don't necessarily meet the requirements to be on a 504 or IEP, but make the environment extremely challenging. They're a great group of kids, but they're a handful.
Yeah, I think I did mention that. I think that there are always going to be kids who don't quite meet the criteria for special ed designation, but who have particular strengths that prevent that from happening, but then have these other sort of vulnerabilities and needs that, special ed is a narrow world, right? There's a narrow definition of what qualifies. It's not as easy to qualify for special ed as people sometimes imagine. And so kids who have emotional dysregulation, on that alone, that's not enough. They need to have several what they call gates that they have to pass through, and they have to be discrepancies that are of a particular variability so that they get identified. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's any number of reasons to be concerned about kids at this age, and it's pretty vulnerable. They're vulnerable kids, and we're looking to create an environment where they're available. Right? That's the thing. If we can help them to become available for the learning, whether it's academic learning, social emotional learning, learning about nature, the garden, the playground. All of these things are more manageable when you have a reasonable cohort. And one other thing I just wanted to say quickly, I know I've been talking a lot, but I feel pretty strongly that, and Amy and I have talked about this, that this is not going to be like a 2A and a 2B. You know, it's not going to be like that. I mean, when I went through elementary school, that's what we did. We had 8 grades. You know, we happen to have 40 kids in each class, but that was another time and place. Different environment. But for 8 years, you know, that was it. We saw those kids at recess and lunch, you know, and that's how that went. So there's none of that envisioned in this scenario.
Absolutely.
I also do want to point out the academics and the importance of primary academics, because as kids start to get behind early, it's harder and harder every year to catch up. And being able to split so that the teachers can really focus on math, reading. I know science and social studies are really important too, but math and reading foundations are critical at this age, and I can't stress that.
I'm more worried about my daughter not liking school anymore. You know, when she's in a really big class and she's not getting it, if the teacher can't stop, you know, it's going to be harder and harder and harder the older she gets as a school to help her and to bring her back in if we lose her now.
Good point.
I think we've been concerned all year. I think Maureen and Hannah and the teachers have done a wonderful job. And I think some of us did contact the school at the beginning of this year and ask about, and recognize that we were concerned. This is just a really, we hear that it's loud, and it's just physically, it's a tight space. And so I think we've been holding this concern, and we've been really appreciative of how everyone's been managing it, but I don't think it's sustainable, so it means so much to us. It sounds like we're all talking about a solution.
Yeah, my hair was brown in September. You know, I just want to echo what everybody's saying. You know, that social emotional at 6 years old, 6 and 7 years old, being able to be there for each kid's need, be it that they got a new pair of shoes last night or that they didn't have any dinner and some scary person was in their house. You know, however big the problem is, they really need that person, that teacher there for them. And I think that we did the best job that we could, you know, trying to reach those needs and pay attention to where, you know, meet them where they're at. And I do have to say, it's a fantastic bunch of kids. They did build a community, so it did make it possible to reach them as best we could. But they deserve so much more of our time. And there was academic stuff that kind of just got I don't want to say pushed aside, but the social emotional piece was definitely on the forefront, because I think that that's so important at this age. And with a smaller size, you could have that social emotional stuff, hit the ground running with it, and get your academics. They're smart too, which is good, because they did well on all through the year with the benchmarks. So. We're talking, any group of kids is worth the time in there, and they deserve to have that. The physical space that someone mentioned, it's literally, I can't imagine 3 more bodies. That would mean maybe more adults in the room on top of the 3 extra kids, the furniture getting from one side of the room to the other. There's, a lot of things to look at. Splitting up the specials so that the special teacher isn't alone with them means that special teacher doesn't have that planning time that was given up. And the kids that do have dysregulated days need that extra time. That leaves 24 other kids without a significant adult that they were, counting on having for the day. And we've had quite a few days like that. So speaking with just the 25 of these awesome children, it has been a wonderful year, but a really challenging year, and I wouldn't want to add 3 more to that package. So.
I have a question. Were you solo, or were there support staff with you this year?
There was, there was a special ed para in the room because there were special children on IEP, and there was a full-time para in addition to that. So, and
But Maureen, there were,
no way I would have been able to do it without those two humans.
but there were transition times where you were alone in the room.
There was transition times where I was alone.
That's an important thing.
But more than not, I mean, I had the support to, we got creative and would sometimes bring some of them out and leave some in with me so that I could have a smaller group. You know, it was very helpful having those working with those people as best we could. If someone was out and wasn't there, you know, which the paras don't have subs, and often they got called away to, like, you know, help out in another class, or it was in their schedule to go and help someone else. But for the most part, I had support, and I felt very supported. So yeah, I mean, and I think that should continue even if it gets split. But don't forget about the incoming first grade. They'll need support too.
Yeah, and I just want to speak a little bit to what Herb was saying about this idea. If the decision is to split and hire another teacher, which I would advocate and recommend, as Lyle and Herb both have with Maureen, because they are a community and they've been together, it's going to be, as Herb mentioned, important that it's a second grade unit, that we are together. And so my thoughts, just, you know, thinking about this for the past week or so, I would love to do like science units together, where we are a class and we have like the other teacher and I coordinate that, or forest time, or so it's like Herb was saying, it would be a second grade collaboration as opposed to this Miss Amy's doing this and this other teacher's doing that. It's that would be sort of my vision and hope for that experience, that they don't, because they have spent time together and they have friendships, and it's possible, you know, that when you split a group and one friend may be here and one friend may be there, that it's not, that there will be so much cross mingling. I'm not sure of the space, but there is a space available across from my current classroom. I don't know if that's where they're thinking of, but that's the idea. Possibly would be to just keep that so that it didn't feel so isolated or separate, and that would give me an opportunity to collaborate with another teacher, which I think would be really lovely. So
yeah, there's definitely some positive relationships built that we would not want to get in the way of fostering.
Right, and that you would have this idea that they would have all the teachers would be available to all students, so that we would know all of them, and it wouldn't be just, you're in this teacher's class or that teacher's class, you're in second grade and you have these teachers, and depending on the activity that you may be working with one teacher, and that's sort of the idea, I think, what Herb was mentioning earlier. So I think that's really important, you said, because they have been together, there are some close friendships.
I just wanted to say that I'm really heartened by the fact that I feel like everyone's coming to the table with very similar kind of concerns and very child-centered, and I appreciate that very much. And there was a group of parents that every conversation I've had for like months, if it's another parent, has been about this. And so at some point in the last few weeks, I approached Herb and copied some of those parents to say, we gotta talk about this. And it just so happened that he was like, we're talking about it, you know, and I think that the teachers were talking about it, and we were talking about it, and we wanted to come to you guys, and he was kind of like, let's have this driven by administration, because I think that that's really where the conversation is. But I also have been following your merger plans, our merger plans. And so I think that this is a potentially interesting dilemma to be dealing with in the first year of a merged district. And one of the things that a parent who's not here right now, Tara Castine, who has a child in first and fifth grade, so she's dealing with that all over the place. Something that we've watched with the merged transition board, the conversation around, you know, ratios and things like that. And I would really love, I feel much more assured now with these conversations that I do trust that as the merged board, you know, comes into existence, our concerns aren't going to be just like shoved under the rug. And I feel very heartened by the conversations I'm hearing amongst administration and Lyle. and that you're hearing us as parents and appreciating what we're saying. I'm not as concerned as I was a month ago. A month ago, I literally have heard some parents talk about homeschooling, like what are our options, because this is not it. So I feel thankful, I feel happy, and I do hope that whatever budgetary decisions you and ultimately the merged board make are in support of any moves that are recommended by the administration.
Oh, if we could just clone Amy, that would.
My styling skills are incredible.
3D printer or something.
So, can you come up with a bottom line?
Well, there's no bottom line, except to say that if we make the commitment to hire a full-time second grade teacher, that's the commitment. Because given the salary scale, we don't know who might apply, right? It could be someone with reasonably little experience, or it could be someone who's a seasoned veteran, and that changes things. So there's a range, obviously, with salary and benefits attached. It's in probably 50 to 80, 85 with health insurance and so forth. Yeah. So somewhere in there.
Can we do it without another budget?
Well, I don't know about the deficit spending piece. I'm not that familiar. If Frank were here, he'd probably be able to answer that question. But I really don't feel confident enough to say.
If we were to move ahead, because we're Putney, we would move ahead and we would end up with deficit spending. And we would make that decision because it's what's best for the kids. And I think we have to go into a merged board with that same argument. We have to do this, it's what's best for the kids.
Do we get to make that decision now before the merger, or does that decision have to be made after the merger?
I'm thinking we're making what's best, the decision that's best for Putney now. And anybody that goes to the transition board or to the merged board, I'm sure we can tap all of these people to come and say, this is what we need, this is what's best for our kids.
So it might be that a decision can be made tonight that could be challenged? I see.
It could. At the moment, it looks like we're trying our level best to go with the budgets that already exist in all the towns for at least the first year. Then we have time to make choices. Interestingly enough, I sat exactly where you are in 2009, or was it 2010? About the second grade, and because my son was going to be in a very large class.
I have a question, because I haven't done it before. Who is on the hiring committee?
We don't have a standing hiring committee. It depends upon the position. So it would be myself. It would typically involve Lyle or one of her designees. One board member, usually, a parent. Sometimes that's one and the same person. And then a couple of teachers from the cohort. So if this was a second grade, we'd have Amy, Maureen. Marissa's usually on the hiring. So based on my experience, I try not to have 12 to 14 people sitting around a table interviewing someone. I just don't think it's fruitful practice. But we usually end up with somewhere between 6, 7 people on it, and that's how we've done it traditionally.
Okay. I was just thinking that I really would want Amy on that, because they would be working so closely together.
Yeah.
That's a given,
Yeah.
for sure.
Can I ask a question? It's just one of those, if the merger happens and they don't like this decision that we're all talking about right now, I really hope that people think about moving a teacher and not kids. Where if the Wyndham Southeast is a union, a gift that they have is a number of quality teachers and experienced teachers. And if someone has to move, I hope that people think about taking a teacher from already in the district rather than taking the kids and putting them in a different school.
I can't imagine new kids.
Yeah, I don't think forced transfer is even on the table right now.
Yeah, I just could not
We could also
support that.
alter the budget we give to the merge, to this transition committee.
Right, but we have a budget approved by our voters.
Right.
So,
Lyle's talking about deficit spending.
yeah, we can spend into a deficit because this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
But, we can't just say, oh, by the way, here is another $80,000.
No, explain to them that all of a sudden now we have 28 in second grade, and so if this, could alter our bottom line.
I don't think any school in the district has 28 children in a class.
They were
Primary
rolling it out,
students.
following about the 26 we have in fifth grade.
Yeah, so,
And
The budget doesn't change when the numbers of kids change? When you have more kids join the school, does the budget change?
Well, not much, because, we have a degree of flexibility, which now we're testing, right?
Right.
To sort of absorb different numbers of kids at different levels, different classes, and so forth. It's fairly elastic. I mean, 75 to 80% of our budget every year is just fixed, because it's salaries and benefits.
Right.
And that doesn't change much. The only thing that really changes that is contractual obligations. Unfortunately, health insurance doesn't ever go down, so there's those incremental pieces to that additionally. And then the rest of it is just to run the rest of the place. So those numbers are relatively consistent. When we put the budget together each fall, what we try to do, or what I've historically tried to do, and I'm not unique in this, is to just say, okay, what is it going to cost to level service the program? In other words, not level fund, because that means stick with the same number. Because each year, if there's a 2.5% or 3% increase in salaries and benefits, you have to accommodate that, right? So that's how it's typically put together. Yep.
So to you all, I'm really glad you're here, and thank you. It's really fun to be on the school board now and to see concerned parents coming to talk to us, so thanks. That's exciting. I'm appreciative of Ruby, the space that you have been really present with us in the merged process, because I'm imagining 8 people meeting for 4 towns and 9 schools, and what this process would be like for us in the future. So I'm just so glad we're here today in this room having this conversation. And then 2 questions I had, one for Herb and one for Lyle, or maybe the question to both of you is understanding the new words I'm learning on the school board, which is the staff to student ratio and the, I don't know the language, budget cap, the spending threshold.
Right.
I just wonder how those 2 new things I'm learning about, how it relates to how this might interface with that.
I don't think it'll impact the ratio. I feel like we are well within what the state is projecting, or they're thinking we should be. I would urge you all to talk with your representatives about the ratio, because I really do not think it should be legislated. Every school has their own unique needs, and the needs they have for their students might be very different in Putney than they are in another school in another part of the state. And for the legislature to say, this is what it should be, in my mind, is way above and beyond their purview. Sorry, shouldn't get political.
Wait, they haven't backed off that yet?
I have not heard anything about it recently.
I'll check.
So
I'm good at bugging the
report that was commissioned made that same point, that we can't legislate a number across the state because it's too different from one place to another.
Exactly.
Are you implying there's legislation to fix that number?
Yeah.
And it's active right now?
I don't know if it's active. Liz just said she would check.
I would check, I'll check. It was, they had this thing and then the group came in and said, you really can't do this because for these reasons. And I haven't been tracking that one particularly, but I'll go back and look.
That number is a number where it shows all of the different staff to students. So it's not just teacher to student ratio, it's every staff member in the entire supervisory union is divided by the number of students, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a calculation, so we're at 5.8 in our district and Guilford's 4.3, and there's different schools have different ratios, so.
Yeah, they include cafeteria workers, custodial staff, front office, admin assistants, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so it's an interesting attempt to sort of quantify it across the state, across the spectrum. It was met with major resistance. It would be an understatement. So we'll see what they come up with.
And how is the, I think I understand that pre-K is counted a little differently because it's not consistent across our schools. How are special services counted? Because I do know that, the program that was housed in Dummerston moved here, and the adult to child ratio in that room, does that skew things, or is that is that not counted in the way pre-K is?
So that's a WSCSU program.
Right.
It's housed here. Those people do count, but students are counted in different ways. As you pointed out, a pre-K student is counted as 0.4 or something, whereas an English language learner, a student on an IEP, a student in poverty, they all count as more than one student. So those students count more.
Okay, so in the kind of equation,
Yes.
a special services child would be 1 point something.
Whatever, yes.
And so in terms of the count for our school, they're factored in, but they're just a different qualifier?
I'm not certain they're factored in.
I don't think
Okay.
they're part of our ADM.
No.
Okay.
Unless they're a Putney resident
Right.
attending there. Otherwise, they count toward Brattleboro or Dummerston or wherever the student is actually from.
Well, this is the first, I haven't really, there's been so much going on with the merger, I haven't really, paid attention to this particular issue. But I would certainly urge, I don't know if you can, I know it's a political issue, but I'd urge someone who has a sense of what's going on to have a forum. So if there's a way in which we as parents can, have push our representatives and have a voice. I personally don't know I need to educate myself on what to say. And so having forums or something in the library or here would be really a good thing. I realize we're merged out all over the place in terms of our resources, but just encourage you to think about it.
Our representatives aren't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They have backed us 1,000% in terms of AGS and all that stuff. It's not our reps.
Well, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm suggesting that, if we needed to take a bus of parents up to Montpelier, I can guarantee you the bus will be gotten. So I have supreme confidence in my own ability to organize. And also, there are some, particularly in the second grade, there's 25 families growing that are really concerned about this. So I just want to put that out there that you're not alone in the power of voice in our little tiny corner down here.
Yeah, because there's been a group of us who have been all over the state. We followed the State Board of Ed. We went to every one of their meetings. So that's good to know. Right now, the committee was disbanded. The House had a bill, the Senate had a bill about putting off mergers for a year because of the short time frame. And they just went and gave up. So now they're supposed to appoint people back to this conference committee. And if that happens, that would probably be something that if a bunch of people showed up would be a really good idea. Not that they listen to us, but
We're pretty loud.
You can be very visible.
well, the problem is that on the House Committee in particular, almost every one of them is from the Burlington area. They have no sense of rural Vermont.
Right.
I would not at this point look forward to legislative relief on delaying merger.
Right.
Right, but the issue around, this is a slightly different, the ratio thing is it might be a
We
subset.
took a left turn into
Right.
Act 46 territory, and I'm
Yeah.
here to say I would not hold my breath waiting for the legislature to fix something prior to July 1st.
Personally.
I believe that they will simply end their session and go home, and they might take it up again in the fall, I don't know, but I don't.
Well, right now, in the House version, WSESU gets break. That
The
was a
Senate,
switch.
in the House version?
Yep, that was a switch
Okay.
in the House version. But that, to me, me.
Okay, but we need to stay right here on this, because we have a lot of things to do. So you need a motion from us.
And just before we motion, I just
Yeah.
wanted to also put, so if the decision is to hire another teacher, I would just recommend acting on that quickly, just because of teaching talent pools, it tends to, so I don't know if that impacts, but not waiting till the merge, or if we can hire somebody, I would recommend as soon as, we can, it's best to move quickly.
It's already past time that teachers are looking for positions now. It's usually like April or so that, new teachers are out there actively looking. So the sooner the better to not have those teachers with really good experience nabbed up.
Yeah, there's a lot of good talent out there, it's just you don't want to wait till like August 31, or that kind of thing. But it doesn't seem like that's going to
We
happen.
want to do it before 10:30.
Right.
All right then. Sorry? Yeah. I move that we authorize administration to be in search for a second grade teacher. And we attempt to uphold their recommendations. Does that work for you guys as what we need? Okay. Do we hear a second?
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's better for first graders. Thank you for having us.
Oh, we did it. My granddaughter's in fifth grade.
Thank you so much.
So it's a good thing that I want to come like to
Thank you.
We're always glad to see you.
So, Tina, numbers, and it should be brought to the transition board, just to let them know, because it doesn't have a
My camera's away.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, I just didn't know what this was.
I was struck, the reason I asked that question I knew was because I was struck by the number. What said, she was talking about since you know within $100. So $100 allocated across what, like,
It's,
how does
it's
a
based
potentially
on-
$80,000 additional expenditure address that number?
Frank?
Good night. Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ken, I got it all set.
Did you know this was coming in and heading with the
No, I'm sorry. Has been on vacation, not back. Today's supposed to be back,
Okay.
so I will let him know.
And if they come back, this is impossible, we'll try to figure something else out. Because I don't think 28 first graders need to be in the same class, and I'm not kidding. There were 40 of us telling Amelia Stone that she was wrong. So,
Yeah, it would be a little much, I think.
Yeah.
Given, there's also, without saying too much about individual personalities, there's cohort rather specific sort of composites, right? There's actually some classes that with 28 kids would be fabulous. and it could work without a problem. This is not one of those classes, and we know that from experience, so. That's another factor.
What are the class sizes in each of the grades? Right now, I know my child is in
Here you go.
a class of what, 15?
Those are the numbers as of tonight.
3K?
Well, you know, if the fifth grade hadn't, the 19 of them hadn't been gone through together when the 7 new kids came in, that class would have been a disaster. But
Yeah.
the strong foundation that they had, it was kind of chaotic at first, but the kids who had been here all along, they came up with their own solutions, including, can I put my desk over here in the corner? You know, and Audrey, you know, was really great about it. But it was a bit rough at times.
So that 5th grade went up that high only in 5th grade?
Right. Yeah, it was 19 last year.
Wow.
We had 6.
6 and then 1.
And then, that's right, yeah, so 7 total.
That's amazing.
That happens. It's good. I mean, you know, I'm happy to have it. but,
Oh, yeah.
Keeps us busy.
No one's complaining about the students.
You have a very calm 5th grade teacher. Yes.
So can we move on to finance?
I move that we approve the warrant, the PTSD food service warrants in the amount of $3,533.12, and the school district warrants in the amount of $93,477.12.
Second.
Any discussion? Jane? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And I have here an application for 1% funds for Marissa Ladner Minor, Lynn Borowski, and Mary Beth Burbrick. Oh, tiny, tiny, tiny little letters. PCS has been working with the Justice Centers in Brattleboro and Dallas Falls. Our desire is to have a fully formed Tier 1 intervention system predicated on best practices, elements of restorative practices. And to do this, we would like to make a half day of time in late June to dedicate to this work and plan for the next school year. The total number I have here for those 4 people is $442.51.
I move that we approve those 1% funds. That's a fantastic set of, sorry for the words. It's just a fantastic thing for them to deal with the brand population, but I'm really glad to see PCS do more of that.
I am as well. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? Herb, is there anything you'd like to say about this?
No.
Okay.
No, I think that encapsulates it.
I'll tell you, Putney is a part of the brand, but Putney is a model site for other schools in the district around there with sort of work, so.
Great. Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right then, motion carried, and I will put my name on this.
I would say that that's something that dovetails very, very nicely with PBIS and work with trauma populations. It's a really exciting step to be taking as school and schools, very cool.
Okay. Any member can sign there, and then Tim has to do the other signature. So, moving on. Can I have some administrative reports, please?
I'm good. I've said enough.
All right. That works.
This will likely be the last sort of report out with all the numbers and everything. Ruby, do you want one?
Sure.
Because admin assistants get so busy this time of year, but as of April 1st, this is student numbers per school, free and reduced, remember FRs, free and reduced, homeless numbers, DCF referrals, IEPs, etc. different committees. You'll probably remember I was asked to include sort of highlight some of the different committees that I go to outside of school. And then I tried to put in a number of upcoming dates. The first three I think are gone by. But the ones that you probably really should look at are the important June dates, and there are a lot of important June dates. If you do look at June 18th, I am requesting that June 18th be an early release. That's pretty traditional. So if you could make a motion to agree to June 18th an early release, we will have met our days that we need to meet by then.
Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I know how to do it. So tell me how I move that we accept June 18th as the last good day as an early release day.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Every teacher will appreciate it. It's tough when it gets hot. It's already That's it for me.
Very nice. Okay, that is super. Committee reports. Diversity skipped its meeting Wednesday? Yesterday. Diversity Day was apparently a great success. I myself had my leg in the air. So we'll meet again next week on Wednesday, and that is my report.
What time is Wednesday's meeting?
3:45. It got canceled this week because a lot of people couldn't make it, and then Michaela got sick. And that pretty much doesn't go without Michaela.
Okay. And it's weekly?
Once a month.
Oh, that's why it was, oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was moved from this week to next week?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Finance.
SU Finance has not met. We meet at the next at 5:30 for the next SU meeting, which is on the 23rd.
Okay. Force for Learning, Lionel's not here. Have you talked to him at all, Tim?
I ran into him yesterday. He said he talked to Karen at Town Hall. He seemed pretty interested in when the money might come through. I think I actually noticed in the today's sorry, biking tired.
Which one?
No, I'm sorry. In the
in the warrants?
In the warrants from today. But I think I might have actually seen it in there. There was 15,000 going to the town plus 3,000. I think that was
right. Yeah.
So
that's right.
So let me report to him.
Yeah. So Frank took care of it.
Awesome. Very good.
I just have a question about the forest piece. So Lionel said something at the last meeting that, about how we all had voted in November 2017 that the school board was going to create the nonprofit. So I went to the town clerk and I looked at the article we all voted for, and it said that the school board was going to create the nonprofit. And I was like, is that what
The school board was creating the nonprofit, but the member who was creating the nonprofit is no longer with the school board.
So I guess the question I had was just if we met our obligation by, that was a very interesting article we voted on in 2017 that I recall supporting. And now I was looking at it going, what article is this? It was the crazy person who voted for this. So anyway, I just wanted to, I know, I did too. Now I get, so I'm just wanting to ask, is that?
That's accurate.
It is accurate, but have we now met our obligation?
That's accurate. No, I mean, it's in stasis. I mean, I think that there was a lot of groundwork done by Emily in particular, with the support of the existing board. And she had done an awful lot of groundwork towards looking at different options and so forth for the nonprofit, how it would be constituted, what the responsibilities would be, who might be on the nonprofit board, how the school would maintain the, I guess I'd say, for lack of a better term, sort of the majority interest in guiding that nonprofit board. Is that fair, Ann?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's where it went. She had
Was that
talked-
documented, do you know?
That's absolutely, yeah, it's all in the minutes
It's in
of
minutes.
the various school board meetings when it was on the agenda as a regular update, yeah.
Talked about it a lot.
Yeah. Mhm.
So should we set up a time to meet with Emily and Lionel about that process to make sure all that institutional memory isn't lost?
Well, Emily has passed it on to Lionel. But I think if we're going to have a forest meeting, we should probably just have a forest meeting that isn't a school board, like a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Schedule it separately. So I will be in touch with Lionel,
Yeah,
and
okay.
see what kind of a meeting.
Yeah, so Lionel, Emily certainly, Lynn Borowski, I highly recommend being part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, those are the folks who were closest to the things.
And obviously you, because I believe that one of the
Yeah,
things we discussed was that the principal.
Yeah, I often don't put my name in, I just assume it's a given that I'll.
But I mean, we actually specified that.
I know.
I remember that.
I'm aware.
Principal would be on this board.
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yep, no worries.
okay, awesome. Food project. Anybody? Bueller? Okay, there have been no meetings.
So I had said I was gonna help with that process, so I guess I'm looking to you, Herb, and trying to figure out what are my obligations as we're going through this transition of the school board to support that work. I don't think I understand how to do that.
I guess, okay, so I guess I would say that most of that work is on autopilot, right? So the food service program functions quite effectively, so that's going great. The farm part of the farm to school piece, at least insofar as our own back 40 back here, is in process, although you can't really see much happening right now. Steve Head and a couple of other people have been in conversation about next steps for the garden. Another big piece of that is the fridge freezer unit. So the fridge freezer unit, which is hopefully all grant funded, I think it is pretty much covered by the grant. The requests for proposals went out in a timely fashion. We had a walkthrough last Friday. Two local contractors showed up who expressed an interest in the project. They both expressed mild concern about the completion deadline. I know why it is May 31st, but they might not be able to meet that, but it'll be close. You do not have to show up to a walkthrough in order to bid on a project, so there may be other bidders. But I think the RFP went out to about half a dozen local contractors and then was posted in all the obligatory places for state government type work. So that will happen. You, at your last meeting, you may recall, endorsed the materials cost of the shed for the over the fridge. The fridge specs, the fridge freezer specs indicated that it needed to be weather tight for a number of months, which will probably just include, some sort of covering over it, like a membrane type covering, commonly referred to as bitch a thing. That's the sticky stuff. And then Josh Laughlin, myself, and a couple of other willing carpenter types are going to get together and hopefully just do the work on a volunteer basis. So those are the major things.
Okay, are you interested in setting up a meeting of any kind?
Yeah, I
Activity
guess.
just to get us squared away with
We're
where we
gonna,
are?
I feel like it would be good to do that, especially with our dissolving in 6 weeks, just to make sure we're in where we want to be. So quick question would be, who were the people who've met in that committee in the past?
Oh, geez. It's varied. It's been all over the place. I mean, the three regulars are myself, Steve Head, Jen O'Donnell, who should be coming back in a couple of weeks. Who else? Alice was part of that for quite a while, especially in the initial stages. Yeah, there's been a number of people
Okay.
who've been
Does that make
involved.
sense that we set up a meeting just to check in with each other going into the fall?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a meeting coming up soon. Steve Head's really the guy you probably want to talk to about that. He's
Okay,
the coordinator, so
okay,
he would set that.
okay,
That's primarily going to be focused on getting stuff in the ground in a
okay.
timely fashion and trying to set up some sort of a volunteer effort to keep the garden functioning over the summer, which is always a challenge in terms of, routine maintenance of a garden. There's no kids here, so we'll do what we can. So, yeah.
We like to pick through it in the summer.
Oh, you could leave while you're doing it.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever doing that, but yes. We could.
Okay, so you
So that's where we're.
heard that.
I'll
where
reach
we're
out
at,
to
yeah.
Steve
And
and
get
just
back
ask
to us
him.
about
Yeah, and then, just going back to the forest committee, I was struck the other day as I was reflecting back on Lionel's comments that I really wanted to put on record that I'd like us to work with him to not put phosphate on the watershed field. So he had talked about repeatedly some ideas about management, and I don't know if we've ever done that or what the policy's been in the past for pesticide application or herbicide application in that field, but I was thinking, he'd said it twice, and I thought, ooh, I really would love to connect with him around that before it happens.
Just so you know, he is very much anti-pesticide use.
Okay.
The recent outbreak of those troublesome plants down there, it's really only been a couple of years that they've shown up. They were here last summer, that phosphate, what is that stuff? It's wild parsnip that can give you some nasty skin burns. It's only been a couple of years. So far, we've managed, last year we did mow it when the plants got up enough to, just before they were at a place where they might be able to spread their seeds if we mowed it. And Eric just mowed a path on both sides of the main walking area. Frankly, it's been so wet down there this spring that we haven't really been able to get out there. The kids were walking out there and their boots were getting stuck in the mud. And it was, they'd lift their foot out and the boot would stay there. So it hasn't been an issue. But Lionel's definitely acutely aware of the compromises and the concerns about.
And do we have a policy about pesticide? I don't know what our
No.
policies are about pesticide or herbicide application.
We do not, but
We do
I'd
not.
like us to keep in mind that Lionel is absolutely an expert at this.
That's right.
This is not him, somebody who loves the forest pitching in.
Yeah,
This
right.
is an experienced forest manager,
Mhm.
and I'm inclined to trust what he has to say. And I'm sure he doesn't like chemical pesticides any better than the rest of us do.
So I assume he's looking into stuff like what wild parsnip likes to grow in?
I'm sure he knows what wild parsnip
Because
is.
like with brambles, you can just put some lime on the ground and it kills them.
Right.
If you want to get rid of
It's
them.
not that easy with parsnip. They like to smother it a lot. So if anyone rips up a carpet, you might want to hang on to the old carpet just in case.
Smothering.
Yeah, but again, Lionel is an expert
Yeah,
at
okay.
this. and
Yeah, he's the guy.
He is the guy. We are lucky. It's-
Okay.
It would be like, we need a lawyer, and a lawyer fell on the table.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
We're very, very fortunate, and I don't think he will recommend anything like that unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay.
Okay. But
There's a very good article in 7 Days that if you looked up wild parsnip Vermont and just chose the 7 Days website, that goes really extensively through the pros and cons of all of these things. And I do, I would second that. I don't know Lionel well, but I know from back when the forest was a question, he's not one to advocate for, use of poisonous things unless it's really necessary. And I also would imagine in this town, there are quite a few people in conservation who worked very hard when Baskerville was trying to sell against damage to anything that would affect this whole area. So, but if you are interested in the wild parsnip problem, because it's not just out in our little area, the 7 Days article is a really good one.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we've gone there. Buildings and grounds? Anything?
Everything new,
No, I mean, we did, I didn't talk last time, just really quickly about the dry well that we put to try to curb the flow of parking lot water down through the halves of the hemispheres of the garden down there. So Eric dug a nice well, put some rubble in there. We had I think it was Best Septic, I don't know, one of the guys come and sort of blast out the sediment, the really fine particulate that got in there into the culvert beneath the parking lot. And then we had 2 or 3, I think we put 3 of the manhole cover extensions on to get it just a little bit above where the ground level is, so that, and then we put some Sure-Pack around it to try to curb some of the silt stuff that, as the water rushes over the parking lot when we have heavy rain, it finds its way to the manhole covers, which we want. But it also carries with it, some of the finer dust-type particulate that's sitting on top of the parking lot. So we'll see. It hasn't rained heavily since we put them in, but I think it'll be a good stopgap solution.
Okay.
That's it.
And anything from Pat?
Yeah, I didn't have
Sorry?
I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we should have had Marissa when she was here, but
Okay.
we lost her.
Oh, one more on the building and grounds that just occurred to me. They've put the new buffer tank in the boiler room, so.
If I wasn't on video, I'd do a happy dance.
You can do a happy dance. Yeah, they did it. These guys are such pros. It's really an excellent job. It adds to the capacity of the buffer tank, and it's all nice and tidy. All the piping's done beautifully. The guy was here today insulating the piping. So.
And for those of you who weren't here, this pellet boiler gave us fits for years, and it is finally being solved, and thank you for all the hard work you did to make that happen.
Thanks.
It's a good thing, because it's a better heating system, and it's not going to burn the school down now.
I don't think it will.
Well, are you sure about that old
It's our
one?
number one goal.
Yeah, that old one did try.
secondary.
Yeah, that old one did try, you gotta admit, at least a couple of times.
Yeah, we had a couple of
I'm just disappointed that I was not able to take it out behind the potting shed.
We did go out in pieces, so that would make you happy.
I don't know what that is, so I couldn't have shot it anyway, but the spirit is there. All right, well, we're all still upright. Let us move on to these transition board updates. What would we like to say about the transition board updates, other than I just couldn't stay. I was writhing in pain, and I went home. And I'm kind of sorry, but mostly I'm not sorry. So, would anyone like to update the rest of us, including me?
I feel like you were there the whole time. Do you want to say anything before I go into my diatribe?
No, nothing in particular.
Nothing at all?
No, I'm good.
Sergio? Liz?
Well, the first part that I was there, and then I had to go home to help with other children, was a lot of discussion about the candidates forum and some of the questions that would be used in that forum. And I got to see that online, so it was very cool. I was not able to make it myself. And then I believe the discussion more moved into budget, and I think that's when I needed to take off. So.
And then circle around back to representation again.
Probably during the earlier discussion, I would imagine, but that was not there for that.
Okay.
Can we ask if Ruby has any observations? She was also there.
I would be happy to hear your observations, Ruby, if you want to make them.
I was really happy that there were a number of Putney parents who showed up. I thought it was really good. And I think that generally my observation is that essentially everyone is frustrated with the pace and the fact that there's so little time. And I do think that that transitional board is doing their level best, but I think it was unfortunate. I completely think the budget was an important thing to talk about, but what it meant is that all of those questions around the articles and some of the budget value statements got lost in the budget discussion. And so what was unfortunate was that I felt like a lot of parents had come to engage and see if their work, or if there was an opportunity for them to speak to some of those value points if it came up, and it just didn't. And so I'm eager to see what these last few meetings. I think you have an extra meeting that you created, but the last few meetings turn into, and then poof, y'all go away, and then it'll be a whole new, it'll be you guys, but it'll be a whole new list of people. But I think that ultimately, particularly because after that I went to the Canada forums, including the one that was in Putney, and I feel like we have a very good group of people. Those 8 are going to be great. That I feel very confident about. And so, but the current transition board, that point of the healing, that there is healing that needs to happen, that came up in the Canada Forum, the bigger Canada Forum. I feel that on this transition board. Like there are some hurt people and people who feel frustrated with the process, and there are people who are like angry, and I don't know that that's the only thing getting in the way of getting stuff done, but it's like the elephant in the room that is honking its horn. So, but I'm glad I could come, and I probably won't be able to come to all of them, but I love BCTV. Yeah, BCTV. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm always glad to hear parents' 2 cents. Thank you for saying that the 8 will be great, since I will be one of them. So, and the reason that things move slowly is because that's how institutions work. As explained to me in sociology, schools are called total institutions, and there are so many laws we have to follow and how much warning we have to give people. It's bound to move kind of slowly, and I expect that it will not get finished and just hand something to the new MERS board and say, here, we solved all the problems. I think it will continue after the school boards are dissolved and the new school district begins to exist. But I believe in the people who have participated in this process, and I think we will try very hard to work things out as best. And there's bound to be disappointment, resentment. There's literally no way that everybody's going to get everything that they want. So, thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm sorry it moves slowly, but they do move slowly. Is there anything you'd like to say at all on this lab? I know that generally there isn't, but I thought I'd give you the opportunity. Okay.
Can I say something?
You of course can say something.
Just that I am struck by the fact that tonight is our last meeting before the transition board dissolves. So this is our chance to just click, meaning that tonight is our last Putney Central School Board meeting before, because the transition board meets next week twice and then it's done. So I just want to make sure that we're really clear about our budget and article piece, and just that we're clear that Monday we're going to be meeting and Thursday we're going to be meeting. Then we're going to
get to warn essentially prep, as far as I understand, what is going to be warned by the new merged board that's voted in on the 21st. So I'm just like in my head going, wow, tonight's our last chance to be really clear that this is, that we're clear about what we want to happen with the budget and what we want to happen with the articles. So I just wanted to name that as one thing that was on my mind. And then the only other thing is just making sure that we're clear about our communication plan and what we want to do. Tim had worked to create a one-pager Tim and I had worked to create a one-pager, and I wanted to make sure that we were getting that out as many places as we could. I didn't know if we were giving that to her.
I haven't sent it to her as of yet, but I'll get it together hopefully for this weekend.
So I think it would be great, my thought was that we would ask her to post it in each Putney Central School newsletter every weekend through the vote, which is probably only this weekend and next weekend. And maybe even through the 20th. Do you do anything? Because the 25th is going to be important too, and I just want to kind of keep things in people's...
I usually do something every weekend, yeah.
Okay, all the way through the 25th of June?
No, not the 25th.
Okay, just meaning that maybe if we could keep that calendar going in each weekend's newsletter, because that has in it the dates through the 25th. That's going to be an important vote for folks to participate in.
Yeah, so probably the best thing, Tim, would be to send that to Sarah, and she's the one who puts the upcoming events page for me. And she puts that together and then gets it to me, and I drop it in there along with the other stuff, yeah.
And then the only other thing that I think is important is, can we say little things in the Facebook, like, hey, in 2 weeks you get to vote for the new merged board?
I usually put something in. I just put an update in tonight on the that article from Randy Holhut that was in the comments today, so stuff like that.
Okay.
That includes that information.
Okay, perfect. Just as long as, I would say, this weekend next, and definitely maybe the Monday before the 21st, reminding folks, friendly reminders to vote, is something I would hope that we would do.
Yeah. Just wanted to add, I like what you put in so far.
Thank you.
Prefer it over the thing I wrote. I think it's a little
I see.
easy to access.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
While we're on the topic of our last meeting, let's talk about our next meeting momentarily. It conflicts pretty badly with the WSESU meeting that's scheduled for the same night on the 23rd.
Oh, is that meeting scheduled already?
This is a WSESU, so remember there's WSESD and WSESU. So this is the supervisory union, so that means the 3 voting members from Putney. It's the meeting where Vernon is part. And that's where we'll be talking about the second reading of policies. We'll be, I can't remember at this point what's on that budget. That far ahead.
So that's the night of the 23rd?
That is the night of the 23rd, and I believe Finance is meeting at 6 rather than 6:30.
Finance is meeting at 5:30,
and then we're meeting at 6. So that kind of pushes we used to sometimes grab a classroom and meet quickly before the SD meetings, and I don't think that's going to work out. So while we keep talking, have a look at your schedules and we'll think about what we can do. And we can charge through this and let lots of people go if possible. The next thing is the Vernon waiver request through the State Board of Education. Did everybody get that, a copy of that?
I'm not sure I did, actually.
I think I found it on the WSESU website.
I could have sworn I I can read it though. The proposal reads, the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union Board hereby requests the State Board of Education to waive the current requirements of 16 DSA subsection 261 as the implementation of Act 46 merger, as of the implementation of Act 46 mergers, the WSESU will contain only 2 school districts, and therefore our SU composition will be, per state statute, 6 members, 3 from Vernon and 3 total from the other 4 towns of Brattleboro, Dummerston, Guilford, and Putney. As we believe this to be disproportionate and not in the public interest, We recommend upon the event of merger of existing school districts, a new structure with equal representation of 1 member per town for a total membership of 5. And they made this request immediately, the Vernon Board did, after the state board sort of put them on as an add-on to this school district, because they didn't know what to do with them yet.
So meaning there'll be 1 from Vernon, one versus 3 from Vernon and 3 from the new district, there'd be 1 for each.
Yes.
Okay, got
Yeah, 1 from 5 members instead
So
of 6.
Vernon requested that.
Yes, Vernon requested it, but Vernon is requesting that we support it at the SU level.
Did, I think.
Yes, we
if I'm not
did.
mistaken.
Okay, and are they wanting another letter just from the Putney Board?
So this is, I can tell you what everybody else has done.
Okay.
So both Guilford and Marlborough have written very short statements. Guilford said, Guilford Town School Board supports the WSESU request to update the waiver. I can't remember their exact wording. I'll see if I can pull it up in their notes maybe. And it's very short, and then sent it to the State Board of Ed. Carrie is going to the State Board of Ed on Wednesday, just to be there, just to make sure that if there are any questions, she can talk about what we discussed at the last WSESU meeting. But basically, it's a 2-sentence, we support the change in representation.
I just sent what I got from Carrie to you, Tim, because you said you weren't sure.
I actually realized I had gotten it.
Okay, I just copied and emailed it to you again.
Thank you.
They have lots of, so changing the words to the Putney Town School District Board, I would like to move that we send this letter to the State Board of Education.
I second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you, because I remember that when all of this started, it was about all of our children, and they're our children too, if we think of it that way. And I don't disagree with that assessment. And these, our little corner of Wyndham County, we all need each other. Okay, great. Let's take close that document. I have so much going on my calendar on my desktop right now. All right, we need to talk about the VSBA Code of Ethics. Have folks read the VSBA Code of Ethics? Yes. Are we comfortable with signing the VSBA Code of Ethics?
I kept waiting to be asked.
Well, we were actually waiting to fill our empty seats so we could all sign this pretty piece of paper on the expensive stock. Yeah, this is resume paper, like heavy rag content in here. And we were waiting to have 5 members so we could all sign it at the same time. So I have signed it to set a good example for the rest of you. Sorry. It's been a really long day. The next thing I'd really like to talk about is communication norms, but we have to keep it short because it is getting later by the nanosecond. I know we want to have a more egalitarian and less single-person oriented board, but we're drowning Lyle and Barb, especially. Everybody be nice to Barb. Barb is a wonder and a miracle, and yeah, Lyle cannot do without her. None of us can do without her. Barb, I hope you know you're appreciated. So they've got things coming at them. They've got agenda items coming at them. And we've set them tasks. Now, Lyle gave us this sheet of paper showing us what all she's doing at any given time. And literally, like, can you check this over and have it to me by the end of the day? Can't ever be a reasonable question to ask Lyle. Herb, and I hope you aren't being too inundated with emails.
No,
Okay.
not so far, we'll see.
So I'm gonna have this question. Sure you can.
Are you correcting us at me? Well, I guess I want to be just
Hey, if you're
really
gonna go
super
big,
clear,
go big.
because I'm guessing I'm the only person sending out tons of email communications to Lyle. Am I a perpetrator of this
You are a
behavior?
perpetrator from this board.
Okay.
I asked all board
Okay,
members,
yeah.
just because we have new board members
Okay.
and we just need to learn that things need to cycle through the board chair.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that, just so that they're not attacked all the time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I didn't mention that
So-
part. The email that I got from Lyle about this
Okay.
was addressed to all the board
Yeah.
chairs.
Okay.
I
Not
wasn't
just
singling
me.
out.
Yeah, she
Well,
didn't-
I have to say that I've been really confused because something came up, wasn't it last week before the candidate forum? I realized that we were having candidate forum, but there was no clear pathway to identify who was going to do the candidate forum. So all of a sudden, I was in a difficult position to try to understand if I was supposed to communicate with Ricky, and when I communicated with Ricky, I think was confused with me as a member of the transition board who'd been tasked with helping send a press release out. And then I was like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to send a press release out without communicating to Lyle. So it got really messy really fast. So that was, I guess, one question I had was, I know the transition board's dissolving soon and this will dissolve with it. But I've been very confused because I've been volunteering to do stuff on the transition board, what I'm supposed to do. So does anyone want to give me insight? Because I'm about to ask you some stuff again. I don't know what well, let me just tell you what's coming. This is what's coming, and maybe if we just decide it now, I don't have to contact you. I had volunteered to help get the word out with the footage for the candidate forum and the candidate questionnaire. I'd asked it all to be sent. And because I didn't get any direction at the last transition board meeting, I basically came up with a plan that was like, please submit a week after you get it. I will process it and get it to you to put on the website. Is that an appropriate pathway? And
Yes, that is, it's not like before I was chair, I never popped questions off to Lyle before.
okay,
It's just, they're feeling really inundated. And
yeah.
this is the time of year when all of a sudden everything goes into turbo mode because of all the things we have to get done before the end of the year anyway, let alone for the transition.
Right, so that's another whole board that's
So-
been added to our plate.
So I guess my question is, what am I supposed to do?
So
Somebody tell me.
it sounds like you have a task that you need me to do on behalf of the transition board. Send it to me.
Got it. Okay.
And if you have questions, you're welcome to ask me.
I ask you, and then you ask Lyle.
Unless, it can be.
That's fine.
It just depends on how much
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
doing.
If it's
This is
agenda
a
items,
task.
yeah.
Yeah, this is your task.
Yeah.
This is a situation under which you and Lyle would be in direct communication. Because we all said, sure, Jamie, you do it.
Okay. Okay.
But if it's something you want to add to agendas, that goes through Ann.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you-
That part I figured out.
if you have any personnel questions,
Okay.
you can ask Bart, because like, I don't deal with your personnel, like your personnel issues, not other people's personnel issues. You know, filling out your forms for the IRS or whatever.
I don't even know about that, but that sounds good too.
You haven't done that?
No, and we will do a new board training after the 21st because we decided it makes more sense to do a new board training with the new board members for all boards, including the new board members for the merged board, because there is a chance that there could be people that are new. Actually, there will be, because at least one person who's running unopposed that's not on any of our boards right now.
Right.
So we will do a new board training. And some of those things will be answered.
Awesome. Okay, great. Let me see where we have policy review. We have reviewed policy.
Yeah, the only thing I don't remember, I say the same thing so many times. There was a question at the last WSCSU meeting about the HHB, harassment, hazing, bullying, and a question about creed, and I checked with the person, actually the attorney for that wrote that policy, and the recommendation is we do not change one word of that policy. This is a state-approved, mandated policy, so.
I believe creed is the common word
It is
that's in
common.
use.
Yeah.
So it sounds weird to us, but
It's another word we use often.
yeah, instead of saying religion, basically.
Yeah.
All right, table that for now. We need, I think, 2 executive sessions. Am I missing something that we need to do before we go into executive session?
Is it scholarship in executive?
That is an executive
Yeah, we'll need
session.
to-
Yeah. So we will start with that one, and action will be taken when we're done, but it won't be very public. So I'd like to move that we enter executive.
One of the things on your agenda was the recognition of outgoing school board members. I mean, that might be your executive session thing, but I just wanted to let you know from the PTO's perspective that I do know that Ellen has been thinking about and has budgeted some small token kind of appreciation for outgoing from the last election school board members who are not sitting around this table, as well as thinking about, the future and the dissolving of this board. So just FYI, really.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I name one last thing? Because we're done after executive session.
Not necessarily, we can go all night if we have to.
Oh, I do not want that.
I'm just happy to hear that.
I just wondered, I had been thinking about ways of reaching out to teachers, and we had been talking about ways of making the teachers feel part of this body, and this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I wanted to bring a beautiful card and have us all sign it for the teachers, and so hopefully a teacher's watching this, and we can send all the teachers and staff at Putney Central School some love.
I tried, I couldn't find.
I know, we were talking about a card.
I couldn't find cheerful enough botanical stuff that I still have left over to make the card.
Okay. I'm guessing that almost everybody in this body is like cycling through the school. Like, are you guys all picking up your kids tomorrow or something?
No.
Not you, but you live near me. So I was just thinking I was supposed to bring a card tonight. I was thinking it would be nice for us to all like sign a card to our teachers and staff this week and put it up in the, is there a teacher's lounge?
The teacher's room, yeah.
Teacher's room. So I was thinking something we could do as the board to be like, whoop whoop, staff and teachers as one thing. And then, so I'll put it in the office in the morning. So if people have bandwidth tomorrow to pop it in the office and sign it as the board, that would be awesome. And then I can bring it over to your house too on the way, or if you're here still.
We're leaving at some point tomorrow. Get a book from you this weekend.
Okay, got it.
Cleaning out my mother's house, and the internet was shut off months ago. So,
Okay. Got it. So I'll try to connect with you in the morning if I can.
Okay.
And then the last thing is just thinking about creative ways of connecting with teachers as this body to make sure teachers are feeling connected. And I've been kind of trying to do that offline and say hi and introduce myself, but I wondered if we want to try to go to teachers.
Well, historically, what the board has done,
That's on the
Yes.
list. That's, as soon as you brought it up,
I'm
I went,
sorry.
oh, because I was
come
like,
once or twice.
yeah, can you find a place for
A year.
us to join the staff?
Maybe, I'll see. I mean, we've only got like 3 faculty meetings left or so, and we have some commitments for PD, but let me,
Because it was brought to my attention that when we asked all of the stakeholders about their merger information, we had not yet met with the teachers.
right,
Yep. And I would like to reassure them that I do in fact remember what they said last time, and I won't forget. But
Yeah, it was
I want to
mentioned.
talk to you again.
It was mentioned a couple of times. Yeah, we can do that. I just have to look at the calendar.
Okay.
We have commitments on at least 3 of the remaining Tuesdays, so that kind of makes it window a little narrow.
So let's see what
I
we
also
can
just
do.
volunteered to do Tuesday afternoons every week with Aileen Shute in the forest.
for every Tuesday from this point
For
to
the
the end of
after-
the year.
the after school
So,
board?
yes. So I'll be absent from this meeting. I know. And she still needs volunteers if anyone else is interested.
I wish I could. I have anhydrosis, I think.
Yeah.
Before we go into executive session, did everybody have a chance to look at their calendars? We might want to say what our next meeting is, what you want to do about that.
Yeah, this is what I was explaining. We're next scheduled to meet at 6:30 on the 23rd. And unfortunately, the WSCSU board is also scheduled to meet at 6 o'clock.
Finance committee at 5:30.
Yeah, so the going early thing,
Could we meet the next week? Because that week's going to be very busy. Because that potentially, I'd like to go to the first unified meeting, which I think is going to be on the 22nd, the election's on the 21st. The
You wanna go-
WSCSU is the 23rd.
wait, you want to go which day?
Like, I don't know, anytime the week of the 27th, I'm not.
Okay, well, it won't be Thursday because that is the, wow, it's the merged board.
Wait, is the merge board already have its dates for meeting?
I have one scheduled for the 30th of May.
Well, I don't have that one, but I can tell you that WLCSU leadership team is going to be on a leadership retreat that day, so. You won't be
Yeah,
there.
you did tell me that everybody is just basically gone and we won't have anybody from central office. We can meet without central office if there's information that you'd like sent. We can ask ahead of time for, numbers or questions. So
What about Wednesday the 29th? Because Memorial Day is the Monday night that week, the 27th.
Oh, crazy.
Wednesday the 29th.
Yeah, I can do that. What about other people?
29th.
Yeah.
What time? 6, very good.
Yeah, that's,
Normal time?
yeah.
Okay, I can make that work. I may be just a hair late. I have a school thing that,
Is that,
We could do like 7, it's gonna be pretty chill at that point, isn't it?
what it is. At 6:30 would be fine, I'm just gonna be probably coming in right at that time.
yeah, the earlier we do it, the earlier we get to go home.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have that on my calendar.
Is that good?
And I should probably go ahead and look at this.
Putney Central School Board meeting Wednesday the 29th at 6:30.
Yes.
This is off topic, but while we're talking about schedules, the next transition board meeting on Monday, is that at 6 or 7?
7?
Yeah, that's what my wife just said the comment says.
That's what it says, and I was thinking.
It was because everybody else had conflicts earlier in the evening, and I think 1 or 2 people couldn't come until 7.
That's fine.
You imagine?
No, I have,
We're gonna.
I have
Yeah, that's late for me.
I have it in there at 7, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then it's really early on Thursday, right? Isn't it 6 on Thursday?
6 on Thursday.
Fair enough.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And, okay, so we are on,
It's no big deal, we only have 2 more meetings to decide on the budget and the articles, Lyle, it should be super quick.
Quick.
Especially because now we're asking Frank to report on the budget.
Yeah.
Anything to say, Jim?
I just actually wanted to clarify, so are we going to table the recognition this time and hopefully do it next time?
I believe so, because we've got some. more stuff to get through and,
Sounds good.
okay, awesome. Okay. If we have nothing further at this point, I would like to move that we enter executive session under 1 VSA 313. Let me find it. I believe this is
I think it's
under 7.
Yeah, academic.
Yeah, academic records. So I've made the motion, do I hear a second?
Sorry.
All those in favor? Aye. We will be taking action when we're done, but I don't know if you need to stay anyway.